Oh. I could have sworn he said that.
That was if we were on 27.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was,
If it happened on the
Yeah.
27th. He didn't want you to fly alone. You would have done fine. We'll see.
It's awfully quiet.
it's the anticipation, John.
How we doing, Jamie?
We're good.
You good to go?
Yep, whenever you are.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks very much for coming. Appreciate it. Please join me in a salute to the flag and a silent prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. You all know about the new protocols for COVID, so we're following them with one additional restriction. Before you leave here, everybody has to grab a donut over on that table, so please do. I want there to be no donuts when we end this meeting tonight, so thanks very much. Okay, what I would like to do now is turn over the chair of this meeting to Mark Hammond. He is the supervisor-elect, and since the vast majority of this meeting will be highlighting the material that's going to be considered by the board on January 3rd, it seems appropriate to have Mark chair the meeting. So Mark, with that, please take over.
Thank you very much, Darren. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to chair this meeting tonight, get my feet wet, so to speak, as we enter into 2022. So it's my first unofficial or official meeting, whichever way you want to look at it. But I do thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve as your deputy for the past year, and I certainly appreciate the knowledge that I've gained from you, wisdom as well. Always considered you to be a true gentleman and appreciate everything that you've given to the town of Malta and to myself in particular. So
Thank you very much, Mark.
With that being said, we have to accept the town clerk minutes, 12/6/21.
So moved.
Second?
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm a little slow on this, so you have to bear with me, please. Thank you. Thank you. Carried. We have presentation tonight? Yes. We have Greenlight Networks, Lori, who's here to talk basically about the possibility of some broadband services in the town of Malta, which is very exciting. So, Lori, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight. My name's Lori White with Greenlight Networks. We're a fiber to the home or fiber to the premise provider. We're different from your typical cable companies because it's bringing fiber right into your home. Greenlight was founded in Rochester in 2011. And since then, we have grown from a company around a kitchen table to a company of nearly 200 employees at our Rochester office location. In the past 2 years, we've expanded into the Buffalo Niagara area, into the Binghamton area, and recently we just announced that we'll be expanding into the Capital District next year. And so we wanted to come before the town council and the supervisor-elect and all of you to tell us a little bit more about ourselves. When we come into a town, we like to be an invited guest, and that's how we see ourselves coming in. We look to partner with the towns to locate our point of presence equipment. And what that is about like the size of a server rack. And what we like to do is work with the town to locate that, and then in return for locating our equipment there, we can offer that building complimentary internet in perpetuity of the time that the equipment's there. It's a nice system that's served us well in other communities. In some communities, we went into fire halls, we went into community centers, We've went into multiple dwelling units, apartment buildings, to be able to service tenants there. So there's a lot of different opportunities, and what we wanted to do is brainstorm with you to figure out what the best community benefit is for that and where it would make sense for us to go. We offer, at this point, up to 2 gigs to the home. All of our services are synchronous, which means the upload speed is just as fast as the download speed. So, if you're going to watch that movie, it's going to happen like that rather than a few minutes, or depending on your service, how long that might take. Our base package starts at $50 a month flat, and that's for 500 megabits per second by 500 megabits per second synchronous. So that's going to be typically at least 3 times faster than what you might have available now through incumbent providers. And we like to make it all very transparent. There's no taxes, no fees, no contracts. It's just $50 flat per month, unless you're eligible for the Affordable Connectivity Program, which is a $30 credit on any of our plans that we have. And that's available through eligible households through the FCC. In the time that we have grown from the company around the kitchen table to our company of almost 200, we also have made some changes to the service we offer. In the time since we started offering 100 megabits per second for $50 a month in 2013, we've reduced our prices since we started, and we've upped the speeds and services that we offer to our subscribers. We pride ourselves on our authentic customer service. Our whole group is based out of Rochester, and so, they know New York. A lot of them have experience in different parts of the area, so we plan to build out to everywhere that we can, and Malta made sense for us. When it comes to market selection factors, we like to look at a number of factors. We're guided by customer demand within an area, but before we get to that, we look at what kind of fiber-based competition would be in the area. We look at the municipality readiness. Do they have a streamlined process, an open access to distribution fiber, what the costs might be, permits, accessibility to utility poles, et cetera. Our process is not as easy as you might think. We're not a company that can simply run a strand from a pole to a subscriber's home. We build our network from scratch, which means that you're going to have that continuous high speed of light going through glass coming right into your home. It doesn't go to a copper closet and then get distributed in your neighborhood. It is that fast speed coming into your home, and we really feel very strongly that fiber is truly the only future-proof bandwidth carrier at this point. And we're really excited that when we construct our networks, we do it once because we do it right. And it's a long process. It takes about a year to go from being before you to actually getting customers set up. And that's because we have a long process that can take 3 months to 6 months, depending on permitting with utility poles, right of way, and determining, all the state permitting and construction plans. So once we come to a town and you give us your approval to come and survey everything, that's when our engineers come out and they survey the poles, they put in applications. We find out from the town what's required as far as an arrangement or agreement for operating within the town or within your town right-of-ways or what have you. So it's a little bit of a fact-finding mission first, but we also want to be influenced by the town council, by the town residents, on where your needs really exist. If there's one neighborhood that is notably, kind of lamenting the fact that they don't have much competition to choose from, we want to get to that neighborhood. That's our first priority, is going where there aren't other fiber providers as an option. To deploy our services quicker, 2 years ago, we developed a joint venture project with LaChase Construction Company. So we identify the districts, we build out the district design, and then LaChase Construction Company manages the actual build out. And then our guys come and do the connects and the installs. So it's really becoming a pretty streamlined process, but still it would be probable to be 9 months to a year before we actually were able to, get a customer actually serviced within their home. Our Service has won top internet provider in New York State and top internet provider in Rochester. Our customer satisfaction is through the roof. People are so happy with the connectivity, the speeds, the fact that there's not lag when they're using their computer. I think everybody's probably experienced a certain extent that, bandwidth kind of rationing at home, where, you might be on a Zoom call, but somebody else needs to be on something else, and then you just, put the movies on top of that. At 500 megabits per second, most households would be able to do whatever they want to do. And since we're using these means now for telehealth, for school sometimes, it's a really just great way to prepare your municipality and your residents for having that kind of connection through the Internet of Things, however the bandwidth demand grows. We partner with developers, partners, and projects, whether it's on new building renovations, new HOA communities, and we will go to the community and we'll tell them about us. And we really, like I said to begin with, want to be an invited guest into your community. And so we want to get to know the community and get to know what's important to you so that we can service you the best and be the best fiber partner for you. Does anybody have any questions?
Sure, Lori, did you say Clifton Park, you mentioned them, that you have got an agreement with them?
Right.
At this point?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So just a month and a half ago, we did our announcement that we'll be going to Clifton Park in 2022. And that's what got us looking at the capital region as a whole. And we identified places that we wanted to get to that didn't necessarily have a lot of other fiber providers providing competition of pricing and services. And so that's why Malta was at one of the top of our list to come and bring service to the town.
How have you found it in terms of the competition, well, without using names, that we've heard of the other fiber optic? I've been hearing for several years, waiting for them to come into town to do precisely what you're suggesting or proposing right now. How have you found that in terms of with the Greenlight? Is it consistent with where they, brand X goes, we'll call them, or where they want to go? Are they paralleled with you? Do you see the competition there as being really stark, or?
Sometimes, but it really depends on the area. What I will say is wherever we go where there's already a high-speed internet server, that might be a cable provider and a phone provider as well, we see their prices come down and their service levels go up. So even if people weren't to, use our service, and by no means, we like the competition. We want to be held to a great standard. So we think, when people have that option, that will earn their business.
Right. Thank you.
You're not going to be a regulated franchise then, a PSC regulated franchise. This is just open market competition.
So we are regulated by the PSC.
You are, okay.
We are, but there isn't a franchise agreement that's necessary because we're not providing cable.
Okay.
We're just internet. So we don't get into the, that side of the scope of regulations. But we are, regulated by the PSC because we depend on utility poles. Usually we follow the path that utility poles are in a neighborhood. So if it's aerial utility poles, we'll, connect to those poles. If it's underground, we'll either ask to access a conduit or put in one ourselves. Whenever we're going into a neighborhood, our first objective is to leave it the same, if not better than when we started there. We use underground directional drilling to minimize any kind of interruption if it's an underground neighborhood. And we work with the homeowners to get easements when necessary if we have to access a pole line in their backyard.
What kind of approval do you need from town government to go forward with your project? Is it strictly access to our right-of-ways, or is it more than that?
It depends municipality to municipality. Typically, it's to set a standard for the right-of-way agreements. And that's what we usually execute with town. And if we're working with a town to place our point of presence equipment, then we execute a right of entry agreement and a service exchange agreement as well.
That equipment arrangement you just referred to, that is to serve a municipal facility or a related nonprofit?
That's kind of like the open,
Right.
blank slate
That's that's like the community benefit you talked about, but your business is to actually get into homes, right?
Right.
Yeah. And
We-
how do we know the extent to which you're actually gonna, there's really no binding commitment as to the extent that you actually are gonna put a network in place and serve a certain part of the town, is there?
You know what? I don't know the number off the top of my head, but when they looked at it, they look at a certain amount of, we call it HHP or households passed per year. And so for initially adding on a municipality, in that first year, it's right around 3,500 households passed that we can
In
run
Malta?
that we can run
It's
our-
already been evaluated then?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but
What
I would
about,
have to look to give you the exact numbers.
okay. What about your financial wherewithal to stand behind, that kind of a commitment? So
Sure.
that if we say, yes, come to town, please, and there's an expectation you're going to potentially make yourself available to 3,500 homes, do you have, what can you show us by way of financial ability to actually make that happen? That's a big investment.
It sure is. We are very fortunate. Once our founder, Mark Murphy, founded the company in 2011, grew the customer base, attracted the attention of some investors. In 2019, Tom Golisano became the majority holder in Greenlight. He invested $100 million that year for the expansion into the Buffalo Niagara area, and since they've reallocated money to do our capital region. And we're also looking at opportunities to leverage the IIJA and the broadband funding with that to get to some areas that maybe on paper don't make sense financially because of the cost per house if they're really spread far apart. To be able to reach some of those communities that maybe on paper don't make that much sense, but there's some ways to get, creative ways to get there.
Right. Your map in Rochester, which I just glanced at, there's a lot of areas that are not served. Why would it be any different here in Malta?
So when you look at our districts, so districts are typically based around census blocks, give or take a little bit, depending on if there's a geographical boundary that makes it make more sense to make the district smaller. So when you're looking at our map, we go to areas initially when we started where we had customer demand. So that's how we started our business. It was kind of like the Google Fiber model where we would, kind of put it out, hey, we're thinking about coming here. We would get the response, and then we would base our build plans on that. And, it does, we've had some utility permits that have been outstanding for over 3 years. So we've had a lot of streamlining that we've been able to do within the past few years to get our system down so that it's pretty much running at a regular intervals and what we can expect. The utility permitting portion of it is always the one area that we don't have control over, but it costs, a good amount of our network build costs are dedicated within that area. So, what I would say about our commitment is that we are looking to expand in the capital region. We want to make an impact here. Our goals are, to expand across New York State and possibly beyond that. So we're really committed to making sure that our networks are built in a way that they have redundancy, that they are, strong networks that can handle bandwidth for years and years to come. We strongly believe that once we build our network, it's not going to have to be replaced for 50 to 60 years. The benefit of fiber, unlike cable, is that that strand of light that's coming through that glass fiber is going right to your home. When you have any kind of cabling, between the distance where the fiber meets the cable, it starts to degrade in speed, and so you can only go so far. So by equipping every home with fiber right to the home, it really sets up homes to be, like I've mentioned before, future-proof. It also increases property values and rental rents that landlords are able to get within their developments.
Can I ask you too that I'm really grateful for you coming and the help understanding. It's just two other questions. One is, and I guess they're related, what kind of an investment is Greenlight looking to make in Malta? I realize that you can't be held to an exact number. What's the magnitude of the amount that you expect to expend in our town to make this happen? And kind of related to that is, how does the federal infrastructure bill that has a fiber extension component fit into your plans to grow in the town of Malta?
So our plans to expand to Malta right now do not hinge or are not contingent on any kind of government funding.
Okay.
It's a plan that we have as part of our 2022 and 2023 construction that we've set it as Malta is a goal of ours to go to. So aside from, the funds that will probably become available within the next year or two, we would build our network design all based on all of our own finances.
Are you at liberty to say what kind of a range of expense that you're prepared to incur to build a network in Malta?
I don't know that information, so I'm going to have to find out and get back to you.
Will you will get that information to us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
Fiber optic is really expensive to run. Do you actually own those fiber optic lines everywhere, or is it a hub that you're coming off of into our area?
So
In other words, who owns the infrastructure?
So it depends by area. In most cases, it's all our equipment from, the hub site where it
Yep.
goes from. I mean, it all connects to like this huge back middle mile, that goes across
The
the
backbone,
United States and all
right,
that kind of stuff. But as far as like what's servicing people, we own all that equipment. Our intent is to build out entirely our own network. There are some areas where we've leased a middle mile
Yep.
connection from another provider that enabled us then to get into the communities, into a neighborhood. It's, your same last mile that your Amazon kind of decreases the size of their vehicles as they get closer to the neighborhoods. But one of the things that we are a little bit different is that when that fiber is deployed to the neighborhood, that nobody is really sharing bandwidth. So everything with your fiber is just for your household.
So I don't quite understand that. You have this central fiber line coming from where?
So that's on the engineering side that I don't completely understand, so I do apologize. But so we'll have that pop site. And so that pop site will have a fiber, running out of it, let's say 280 strands. And it really is about this big around. It's extremely small technology. It's about the width of your fingernail or a piece of hair. So what we look to do is to run trunk lines. And
Okay.
then those are basically like the equivalent to a transmission line for any of the ELCOs. And then off of that, we want to be able to then, do our drops to neighborhoods. Our ultimate goal is to create a fiber ring in each of the communities where we are, so that helps us with redundancy in all of our services and just the ultimate health of our network.
Okay. I love competition, and there's no question about it. If you monitor all the concerns the citizens have here, they would love to see competition. No question about it. And at this point here, I would support you. Having an interest in coming here, definitely would. 'Cause I do love competition. And when it's fiber optic, it's expensive, and I'm telling you, it's clean and it's fast, and dollar for dollar, you're getting a huge bang. So I love the idea.
Thank you.
Then, thank you.
One question, and this is to either Kevin or you, Lori. Assuming the board wants to go ahead with this, what would be the next step?
Well, I did request of Lori and her company, what they did with the town of Clifton Park. which I did receive from them. I gave it to Steve, and it was basically a right-of-way agreement into our right-of-way. And, you know, Steve and Greenlight and whomever can look through that agreement, but I would think it's gonna be along the line of authorizing a right-of-way agreement with Greenlight.
Thanks.
But
The thing is, though, that you know, I understand that that is required to make this happen, but, you know, we want all the good stuff you talked about too, right? So the question that I'll have is, how binding are your commitments going to be to make happen what you've described to us? You know, so that there's a, you know, a mutual arrangement. We're allowing you access into our town, but we do so with some expectations you're actually going to make some stuff happen. So
We- When we do the equipment location, we had for the longest time done a 5-year agreement, but now we've been doing 10-year agreements. So we like to let wherever we're going know that we're here as to be a partner and to be a part of the community for the long haul. Having said that, the world of technology is constantly changing. We recently acquired a company in Binghamton to grow our footprint. And, you know, we are always have our eye out for other things too. And I would assume that, you know, that's true for some of the bigger companies too. So barring anything changing company-wise, our intention would be to be here for the long haul.
I mean, I'm generally supportive, like Craig, of competition. I'm interested in considering this, but, you know, I think for me, there's some details that need to be fleshed out before I would vote to go forward. I certainly have an open mind about it.
Thank you.
Would there be a path moving forward to Darren's question, what we should do next then? I mean, I understand with the right-of-way agreement, we would need that, but in terms of, to address John's concerns,
I would say you modify the right-of-way agreement so that you're providing the right-of-way in exchange for your expectations of them doing X, Y, Z in the town of Malta. What do you think,
what are your
Steve?
thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the direction from the board is, that would be necessary. What Clifton Park did might be different than what we want to do here in Malta. But from what I'm hearing from John and from the question is that, fine, if we're gonna give access to a right of way, you know, what is the, not just, yes, you wanna build in Malta, but what is the actual commitment to, you know, how many houses per year, how many, whatever the town is looking for is a standard in exchange for the right to access it.
Okay.
Obviously, we're not the first ones to do this with you. I mean, if you can point us, we can learn a little bit from Clifton Park. If we haven't, maybe having, you know, Steve talk to the town attorney down there. And if there's other, you know, references, I guess, that you can give,
Absolutely.
that would be helpful as well.
And the second point, just to be clear, if in the process of laying your lines, you put equipment to a town facility or other facility, what you mentioned is then that location would get free service for as long as the equipment remains.
Right. Mhm.
So, you know, there's a commitment to the residents pursuant to the agreement that we have here, and there's also a, you know, benefit potential to the town and the public access to, for example, if there was fiber to the highway garage or whatever, and there was equipment that was attached to that, then you would have that service at no cost.
And other towns have done exactly what you're suggesting as far as putting it as part of the right of way agreement.
One last question. The point, what is it, the point of
Point of presence, so we call it
presence?
just
That's
a,
more than
hub
just
site.
one little connection. That's your main, is that your main hub?
so that's gonna be like a server rack, if you imagine like your communications rooms. You know, it's really gonna be a server rack. What we're looking for, it's basically 12 square feet. Someplace that's
We'll
dry.
put it in your office, Kevin.
Someplace dry, someplace climate controlled, preferably. You know, there's a lot of things that we need to be able to do, like we need to be able to access it on a 24-hour basis in case of any kind of disruption. It's not our anticipation that that would happen, but we want to make sure that we've covered all of our bases and have a contingency plan to our contingency plan for accessing it. But when we put it in, it will take about a week, and then you'd see us probably once a quarter just to check on things and, make sure everything's up to snuff.
It seems like we've been kind of implicitly talking about residential service, but do you envision that there'll be a commercial service component of your network here?
In a limited way, we aren't, our target customers wouldn't be a business that has, 150, 200 people there.
They're not.
We would, we target small businesses, mixed use, commercial type of developments.
Okay.
Where there might be, housing on the top floor, mixed use retail along the bottom. We don't, service, as part of our agreement with some middle mile providers, we don't service public schools. And we don't service, I think that's it, is the public schools and universities.
Okay, thanks.
So apartment buildings you would be servicing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and, just recently, there's been a change too from the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program to the Affordable Connectivity Program. So one of our goals in coming into a community too is just to find out where there might be digital gaps and to, do what we can to partner on any kind of efforts to assist with digital divide issues.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
sure
you,
we'll have
Lori,
lots
very
of
much.
questions
Very much.
over time.
Looking forward to this, I really am.
Thank you for the opportunity.
One last thing, Lori did say she has a presentation that she'll forward to me that we can get up onto the website.
Oh, great. That'd be very good.
for
Thank you.
The public.
Super.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Comments from town board or department heads? Anyone have anything? I would first, if I could, just like to mention that the community center had their holiday party Saturday. I happened to be there, met Santa Claus, dipped some ice cream, and enjoyed a wonderful puppet show. The puppet people have watched them before. It really is quite a show. Kids love it. You can tell by just watching them. But a special thanks to Community Center, Barb, Joe Mazarak, that kind of spearhead this. Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they do this each year. Put their heart and soul into it, and everyone else that helped out. I know Megan was there, your Megan from your office helping out, so it was really a good time. And despite the weather, it was a good turnout. So I just wanted to give you kudos. Good job up there, and thank you. Anyone else have anything?
Mark, if I could just briefly, I don't want to embarrass anybody here, but this is our last meeting of the year, and unfortunately, the last time we'll have Darren O'Connor here with us up on the dais, and Darren has been absolutely a fantastic leader for this town. First as our deputy town attorney, and as deputy supervisor, then as supervisor. Darren, you're going to be sorely missed by everyone here.
Absolutely.
Your intellect, your wit, you're easy to work with. I know we'll all dearly miss you. Now when I don't know if it's a good thing now we have one less lawyer up here, but we certainly are a much better town for having had you at the helm for the last several years here. I know I'm personally gonna miss you a great deal. I know you're gonna actually have a little bit of a retirement now and not be doing the people's business here. Get some big shoes here for Mark to jump into, and he's going to be able to tackle it and do a great job with it. But Darren, we're going to miss you. Thank you so much for all that you've done for the town of Malta.
Thank you very much, Tim. I really appreciate that. Thanks very much, and I will also dearly miss all of you working with the other electeds, the staff here, the department heads, all the volunteers. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much.
I just feel that I have to add to this. I wasn't going to say that I want to embarrass you, Darren, but I'm going to do it anyway. In my younger days, I remember watching MASH all the time. Yes, you know it's coming. Never missed an episode of MASH, and never in my wildest dreams did I think that one day I would be working alongside a celebrity that was in fact on MASH at one episode. But nonetheless, it wasn't just a bit part. He was in there quite a bit. and he's actually the man that shot Klinger. Whether it was by accident or not, it wasn't witnessed. We can only go by what we were told, but nonetheless, again, it's been a pleasure, Darren, and again, gonna miss you. Thank you. Okay. Comments or questions from town residents? Anybody have anything they'd like to say at this time? Nothing at all? Alrighty. Tonight's action items. We have two. The first is the bar agreement with Stillwater. It's a Board of Assessment review agreement we have with the town of Stillwater. Pretty much, it comes to, into effect if there's disagreements over grievances and such, where there's a conflict of interest between two towns, and that sort of thing, so each town would represent the other. So we have that in front of us, and on that question, do we have a motion?
So moved?
A
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And it's carried. Second action item would be the budget transfer. This is from the comptroller, of course, and is approved 2022 budget with the needed transfers that are in here. Kevin, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that. That's the long and the short of it, though. So on that question, motion,
So moved.
Second.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is also carried. Discussion items for the January 3rd meeting will be coming up. State Farm zoning amendment, which it's actually not a zoning amendment. It's basically kind of a change. As with the Mohawk Chevrolet dealership. And again, we will be discussing that and also setting the public hearing for January 24th. Jamie, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, just basic, brief, because we will be discussing this next month.
So Mohawk Chevrolet, and their attorney who represents them, submitted a package of material that I'll get to the board. We were kind of waiting for the changing of the guard, before we distributed that, but, basically they took the cues that some of the town board members presented to them at the last time they were in front and, abandoned the PDD amendment that they were originally seeking to add that, almost 5 acres, to add use to that, and they're actually just want to, amend the map so that, it can be C2, which is what Mohawk Chevrolet is, to the north of that, so it would be abutting, that piece. And what they want to do was the auto detailing piece would be permitted underneath the C2. So I'll get the paperwork to Roseanne and she'll distribute for everyone.
Great, thank you very much, Jamie.
Jamie, would you remind me, although maybe I'm not the most senior on the board, but the the original proposal was to amend the PDD to extend it to incorporate this parcel? And the current proposal is to take it out of the PDD?
No, the original one was to, in this area where this parcel is,
Right.
was to add a use to that.
I-
Now,
It's outside the PDD right now.
no,
It's
It's
inside the
inside.
PDD.
It's inside the PDD.
Okay.
Based upon discussions that were had, it was suggested that maybe they consider asking to have the C2 zone line pulled down basically over this triangular piece, have that rezoned to C2.
And-
That way they could
And removed from the PDD.
do.
It would be removed from the PDD?
It could be removed from the PDD, we could also do it as an overlay, so it would have all the advantages that this fell through, for whatever reason, the PDD would still be in play on that parcel of land. We have a lot of overlays in the town. Route 67 West has an overlay that, and other places that afford both the PDD that was there originally and the new zoning.
Okay.
Something that, we could discuss.
So there's going to be, it's intended that there's going to be a presentation on it
Yes.
to us, so that we can understand the details? Okay, fair enough.
So
Thank you.
is that basically, for lack of a better word, is that going to be like a lot line adjustment? Is that what that would entail, Jamie, or not?
It's,
Okay,
You know, so it was like where form-based code was over here that had to do with the intergenerational community
Mhm.
of Reading Street.
Yep.
Scott Lansing came before you and asked to take that DX3 and drag it
yes,
a little
okay.
further to the south, and the town board was not agreeable to that, similar to that.
Understood. Thank you, Jamie, appreciate that. Next item will be the, approve the 2022 engineering services that we have with Labella, formerly Chazen. I believe there was like a 5.4% increase, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin.
That's correct.
So that will be in next month's agenda. Next item would be the 2022 Gar Service Agreement. And apparently Gar, I guess it's not an acronym that we found out. Gar is Gar, and they provide the assistance to the assessor's office for commercial properties. And that will be brought up as well next month, January 3rd. Next item would be to approve the Malta EMS agreement, which January 1st begins, ends December 31st of 2023, I believe. And we are all set to go with that as well.
I just want to make sure the board's aware, the ambulance squad did ask for a change in rates.
Mm-hmm.
Transportation rates, that's in the draft agreement. They increased their rates according with industry standards for like basic life support calls. That contract is over at the town, over at the Malta ambulance squad's board for their review as well, and it's occurring simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
So I have not heard any comments back.
So there is a slight rate, just so I understand, a slight rate increase, but basically we're still around the 470 mark. Is that correct, Kevin?
Yeah, the rate increase is what they charged for somebody to, for their ambulance to respond to a big
Right.
life. And then they bill that rate to the insurance company, and then the insurance company reimburses based upon their agreements with the ambulance company.
Right, depending on whether or not it's BLS call or an ALS call.
Yeah, yeah, and our
Understood.
agreement's $470,000 as per the establishment of the district.
Okay. Great, thank you. Next item will be to approve the scope of service for Route 9 mid-block crossing. And what that is basically to look into the possibility of putting a crossing out in this area near, at 9 and near the town complex. And that study will be done to see the feasibility and cost analysis for rapid flashing beacons, raised median and such. There will be, from what I gather, a reimbursement as well from the county that's part of this as well. So that'll be factored in. So again, we will be discussing that next month.
Mark, if I may, I
Sure.
just want to make one small adjustment. You said raise medians. Let's not get everybody excited. It's just it's a special, what's it called? Refuge island. That's it.
Okay.
That's all they're looking for is a refuge island for the person coming across. When they get halfway across Route 9, they have a place to stand. It's very small. It's not a whole median or anything, so.
You know, honestly, when I read this in the report, raised median, I was wondering about that, but I figured it's written in here, so apparently it's part of it.
It's
That
not long.
does make me feel
It's
better.
very short. It's not gonna be a long raised median, okay?
Makes Roger feel a lot better too, I think.
I just want, folks to know that I have, some concern. I mean, I like the project, but I'm concerned about the finances and prioritization of spending town funds. We know we have a lot of things to spend that really need to have funds. I spoke to Kevin this morning. There's I think you said $7,100 grant from the county towards design work for this. But there's a possibility of some complete street funds remaining to help fund construction or maybe design as well. But when I kind of just use my thumb and guess what the total project costs would be, it looks to me like town funds will have to be involved to do it. And this is not a high priority for me for town funds. I think, we've got to deal with the court. And frankly, as I expressed to Mark, my concern pedestrian-wise is first for over by the Plains Road Park is to get beacons in over there so that kids can get back and forth safely to that, that facility and for camp. I'd prioritize spending money over there before I'd spend money here. So just so people know where I'm coming from.
Kevin, when that was brought up before, both John and I had brought that up several months ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you say that there was some action moving forward on the Plains Road?
Yeah,
Or did I-
the update with that is Creighton Manning did design the plans to install that flashing beacon. The county needed a map plan specifications. That has been concluded. The county provided comments. Those comments have been made. Creighton Manning's in the process of revising their plan to make it a final plan that will go out to bid. In the first quarter of 2022, we'll get the bid results back, and the funding of that is anticipated to come out of the remaining funds of the multi-community park capital project.
That's good news. But again, to be honest, this does not rise up there as far as prioritization for expenditure of town funds for me. There's just too many other things we need to spend funds on. Kevin, do we know we probably don't, what the walk down here on the south of the exit 12 roundabout, it wasn't broken out so you could know what that total cost was to do the crossing there, was it? It was just part of the overall bid.
Yeah, it was just part of the overall bid. I'm in the process of analyzing the final construction costs, okay, to know how much is spent for lights, how much was, because there's part of that project that the town remains with ownership of, and part of it gets essentially transferred to New York State DOT because the raised medians and that's in there right away. So we're retaining the sidewalk. So I'm in the process of developing that, those final figures.
So, not to beat a dead horse, but I'm a bit of a skeptic on this project.
So what brought that project forward? Was it conversation, or was it a request from a community here? Or,
We had
How did it
conversation back
start?
in May at a town board meeting in which we identified that there was this opportunity to submit a funding request to the county for $7,100. The idea of a mid-block crossing was thrown out to the town board. There didn't appear to be any objection to it. The funding was obtained from the county of $7,100.
Okay.
And that's why we're where we are now. You go ahead, you plan for it,
Yeah.
okay? If you opt not to construct it, you do have the design. Maybe it gets funded later with with maybe a spot improvement grant that might become available through infrastructure funding. I don't know.
You
It's up
make
to
a-
the town board
You
how
make
this
a good point. Having the
You know.
design on the shelf.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea what the total design cost is gonna be?
It's around 11.
It's
I
11,000.
think, 11,000, so
Okay.
7, so we'd be in it 4 to 5,000.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I guess I'm more comfortable than, going forward and.
Because that's
you know,
actually a good approach, really. That
Yeah.
way, it's been done, so that if funding does become available, if it's not right now, then certainly it's there, but at least have that portion of it done. Because I think we're all in agreement that is an area that would benefit the town in order to cross, especially right in this area. So, personally, I do like that part of it.
So is this at the intersection by the CVS, or is it down?
it's to be determined at a later point by
Okay.
the engineers.
Getcha.
Okay, whatever is the
But
most
something in
safe.
that stretch that's,
Yeah, somewhere between there and probably Kramer Road, Colomer Drive, somewhere in that vicinity,
Okay,
we're talking.
thank you.
You know, it's gonna take into account various turn movements, I'm gonna guess, okay?
Line of
We're-
sight,
li-
everything
Yep,
that's.
we're also, we put in here to make sure they look at pedestrian lighting, okay, because it might be in a dimly lit area.
Yep.
You know, it's, one side of the street, you know, their side of the street over there with Ellsworth Commons is pretty lit up, if it's in that area, this side is dimmer. You know,
Yep.
we've gotta factor all those things in and make sure it's in the best location, so I can't tell you
I
where
got you.
right now.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, I appreciate it. So we'll be discussing that more
Yep.
on the 3rd. Next item would be the 284 agreement for the highway superintendent for Roger. That is to allow him to use funds for road improvements. And next item on the list is the, to authorize code enforcement officer education conferences that we use for our folks in code enforcement and through building and planning for any updates and all updates in schools and classes, et cetera, that they may need to better do their job. Next item will be to authorize Highway Department F-350 truck for the Highway Department. Next item would be to appoint a part-time account clerk typist for, that's for your office, correct, Kevin?
Correct, it
Comptroller?
is.
Okay. And hopefully we'll have, maybe you have a name then.
Yes, I'm in the process of conducting interviews and hope to have a name in the very near future. I would hope to appoint as of January 3rd, not miss that opportunity.
Okay. Thank you. The next item will be to discuss the building and planning renovation, possible renovations within the building that we're looking at to adapt to our growing town building in order to suit our employees and get some of the folks back together that used to work together and now are spread out. So we continue to suffer growing pains and looking to address that as best we can. So actually, I think we're going to try to get that as an action item, I believe, on the 3rd, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm pushing as hard as I possibly can to get an action item, you know, but I understand the town board's gonna need some time, so it might not happen. It might
Right.
have to wait mid-month if possible, or to the end of the month. I'm pushing to get a revised cost estimate and drawings completed. The drawings have to be acceptable to the building and planning department since they will be occupying the space. We provided comments to Labella to revise the plans, and in the process of revising those and developing a more solid estimate, so
Okay.
I'm pushing, and they know I'm pushing, so, but
Right.
we want, in the
Looks-
end, we wanna make sure it's a quality product of what we're gonna
Exactly.
construct, so.
And looks good to you, Jamie, so far?
Yeah, Greg went through it, you know, with a fine tooth comb and made several remarks back to Lavella to have incorporated, and so we're working our way through it, there's a lot of detail involved, so.
Great, very good.
So, Mark, and I mean, you folks that work here, Mark and Jamie and Kevin, you know, I don't really know how this is gonna, I'm just not in town hall, you know, is this really gonna work well for you? Do you wanna try town supervisor on for size before, you know, we commit to this kind of a change? Or are you comfortable, having been in here, that this is gonna work for you?
Well, one of the things that I've noticed in the time that I've spent in the building is the fact that building and planning, because of, number one, how busy they have become and will continue to get even busier, and because they work so closely together, not just the planners, but code enforcement and their fire inspectors, they're all part of that same team. And right now, they're not a team, so to speak, in terms of where they are located. And if there's something that comes up, they're in a different building, some of them. So I think it really does help to streamline things and helps with the communication for them to be together, which is, right now, that's my primary goal, is to get them back together and try to accommodate that with, you know, I guess it could be viewed as a Band-Aid to a growing problem, or a bigger wound. But I think right now, given the cost of especially building materials and what we'd be looking at to increase our footprint, it's probably the most benign approach, the way I see it right now. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't know what others think, but I'm all
with that.
ears.
I agree, there's no question that they have to get more area in the office, and it seems to be a pretty sound floor plan, and I'm sure Joe and his outfit has a excellent handle on it, and things aren't getting, I mean, something has to happen. We're just running out of space. There's no question about that. This has been long overdue. Logically, that makes sense, I think. It's kind of a, I shouldn't say wasted space, but it's a multi-use area that we're just gonna take advantage of. So,
Yes, and
well overdue, I think, though.
it is, and because I think there's no argument that we all realize how fast we're growing, not just in town, but in town government, our buildings, we need more space. One of my number one priorities is to establish a building committee, once again, and start focusing on what we're gonna need for not just now, but 10, 20 years down the road, and try to work toward that somehow. But at the same time, address needs that we've got right in front of us, where we're not able to really do some major surgery right now. But at least if we can do this with as least of an impact to our building and the people that work here, I think that's really the way to go right now. But again, I'm open up to any suggestions from someone that might have a different approach or idea. But again, I think that we'll definitely look at that, hopefully as an action item next month, couple weeks as it is, and we'll see from there. I'm sure we'll have more discussion at that time, but nonetheless, those are my thoughts on it right now. Thank you, John. Last item is to announce the organizational meeting, which, yes, we're gonna have that. We've had a little bit of a setback. Normally that would be done by now, but for different reasons, part of my team was out for a little bit, so we will have this organizational meeting on the 3rd, so that will be taken care of. Okay, any other town business? Any additional comments from anyone? Judge Sloat?
It's that time of the year again. As far as from the judicial people over here, we want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you, Woody.
Thank you, Woody, and our town courts. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else have any other additional comments, public or otherwise? Anyone from the board? Okay. So, in closing, before we adjourn, I'd just like to say again, thank you, Darren. I appreciate it. I really do, and want to miss your support, your gentleman-like demeanor that's always present. And as Tim pointed out, I have some big shoes to fill, but I'm going to certainly try, and I will find your phone number, even if it's unlisted. So I don't care if you're in St. Augustine, I'll find you. So,
Future looks bright.
yes, it does. And yes, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody, and stay well. And could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, folks.